Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creator Talk. This is basically a follow up to the sub celebration we had last week, where we did talk about quite a few things in regards to the comic business. So, the idea is that I'll try to get people on every week to talk, maybe about an hour, half an hour, depending on who does what. And just have an idea of how people view the business, how people work in the business. That's also an important part overall. And just try to help each other out in this difficult sphere because it's not super easy to break through in independent comics. Some people are luckier than other, obviously. And some people make their own luck, like the person I have with me today, Tyler Carpenter.
I appreciate that. How you doing?
I am doing fine. How are you doing?
I'm dandy, man. This might be the highlight of my day, so I'm here for it.
That's how life is sometimes, unfortunately. So Tyler is currently running a Kickstarter. Yeah, it's on Kickstarter, right?
Yeah. Dude, we don't even have to talk. We don't even have to talk about it. Like I'm here just to talk. We don't even have to promote. I'm here just to talk.
I do want people to be able to see what you're working on right now, as an example. And this is not it's not a dig on anyone or anything. The number seems bigger on my end since it automatically translates to Canadian.
I mean, I wish I had those Canadian dollars.
But yes, overall, it would be a word about the same on the business and how their economy is going. But yeah, so a decent amount here in 3 days. It's very good. 274 backers. That's a good start. Hopefully, it keeps growing, right?
Yeah, that's the goal.
So this is for all 4 of your books here for Girl with the Mega Fist. So it's a complete series, or do you plan on doing more of those afterwards?
Yeah, so it's an ongoing series. This is the finale of the first arc. It took 4 volumes to do the first arc of our series, in totaling 800 pages. So yeah, after this arc, we move on to volume 5 for the next arc. Super excited for that.
Oh, that sounds very good. Always nice to see something ongoing. How many books have you written and drawn per year recently?
Oh man, I mean, so like this year alone. So if it's just written and drawn, I've done The Girl with the Megafist, and I did do a book called Coins of Judas, but it got canceled. At least my part of it got canceled. But then I also do a series called My Sexy Witch Academia, which funded on Kickstarter as well, really well. I just got done kickstarting another series called Super Plumber Sisters. Later, after this campaign, I have another one called The Cthulhu Murders, and I actually just got done writing, and whenever I hire an artist, I do the layouts for the pages. So I just did those yesterday and sent those to the artist today. So I think every year I'm doing around like 600 to 700 pages of comics where my hands are somewhere in them. Like, and you can get most of them in my add-on section. Like if you scroll all the way down to the campaign, you can see all the extra books that I'm offering in this campaign. Yeah, there's My Sexy Witch Academia, My Life is RPG. I have a sci-fi graphic novel. It's 120 pages. I have my Demons Omnibus, which was my very first series going into comics, and it's a 370 page omnibus. These are just the comics that like I put out. I've worked on several other comics with various writers and artists, and I've done thousands of pages of comics before I even put out my own stuff.
Well, that's the best way to practice is to do that, really, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I've backed Super Plumber Sister as you were running the Kickstarter. So
nice.
So for this one here, I've got the 1 to 4 physical and digital bundle. It's a really
Oh,
good
nice.
price, honestly.
Yeah, that
$68 Canadian for 4 books.
yeah, and they're fatty, man. Like that's like 800 pages. Like that's we're
Well,
not
they're
messing around
basically
here.
the Japanese manga format, or are they larger?
They're
Like
larger.
okay.
Yeah, they're larger. So we call when I do a Kickstarter and I sell them on my
Mhm.
website, we call them the prestige size.
Mhm.
And then probably later next year, I'll be launching the standard sizes. Those aren't going to be on Kickstarter. Those are going to be on Amazon, I think. And I'm thinking that those are going to be just normal manga size.
That would be reasonable.
Books.
Yeah.
Yeah, they will be a little more expensive though. So the prestige formats will always be like the most affordable ones.
Funnily enough, that's an odd situation.
Oh, for
But
like a bigger book,
yeah.
being it's because I'm going through Amazon. They just take such a massive cut. That like in order to make like $1, it has to be just a little more expensive than these books.
That's reasonable, and it kind of makes sense. But Amazon does give you a fairly large platform to sell your product.
Potentially. Yeah, potentially. I mean, the thing with Amazon and I was selling on Amazon for 5 years when I was working with a publishing company. I mean, you can put a book out on Amazon and make 0 sales because there's millions and millions of books on there. And so you really have to, like, Amazon is its own beast. You could be there are people in the industry that are full-time just selling on Amazon and focusing on Amazon as their business. They're making millions in dollars and some of them thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. But it is a full-time job just to like focus on Amazon. And so I just haven't had the time to do that.
You would probably need or want someone to manage your Amazon portion. And unless you're starting to make those $10,000-$20,000 a month on Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So luckily, right, because I'm doing it all by myself currently. We have time to do at least the majority of the stuff. I did hire someone recently to do some freelance stuff for me, and depending on how that goes, there'll be a monthly contract with them. But other than that, it's really just me.
That person you hired, what did you hire them to do?
Editing YouTube videos. Because that's the
reasonable.
That's the longest portion. So I mean, I have this like massive plan. Now that I'm full time doing this, the stakes are never been higher for me to like produce content as much as possible. And so it's like, okay, how can I put out 3 videos a week, still do a live show, make hundreds of pages of comics, do campaigns, be on social media? It's like, how can I do all of this stuff? And the thing that takes the longest for me currently is just editing. And so editing a video. So if I can get someone to edit, they know my style of editing, they can copy it. If they can do that, then there's like, I've just saved myself like 6 to 12 hours worth of editing a video, and that could be spent either drawing or doing something else.
I fully understand that. I mean, editing is what takes me the longest as well, and my videos are generally fairly simple. Overall, I have a PowerPoint. I basically, like I said, I'm giving lectures on the comics. So I have a PowerPoint. I just have all my points and I just go through it. And when I'm editing, I'm basically just chopping off. I'm not doing anything really fancy, and that can take me anywhere. Like on a 30-minute video, it's going to take me anywhere between 2 to 3 hours. So imagine
yeah. Like, I'll tell you this, the very first 20 seconds of my last video that I edited took me 3 hours. The first 30 seconds.
That's, I understand. I mean, when I look at, the fancier people, they're your Nerdrotics, your Culture Casino, quite a few people like that out there. I look at the editing work that those guys have in their videos, and I'm just stunned and baffled. I wouldn't have the time to do that and, prepare a lecture every week. I mean, I might be able to do 1 video every week if I did that, but with the amount of comics I get, I wouldn't be able to survive.
Yeah, but maybe one video a week, maybe 1 video a week is all you need. Yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole other conversation. I've got Drive Through Comics here pulled up. Those guys take 20% last time I checked when you sell digital through them. Would you say that this would be another option possibly for some people?
Yeah, I mean, my thing is this with platforms. A platform is only as good as it has traffic, but also it's only as good as the time that you're going to put on it. So, I mean, you could do a pray and spray and put your book on every single outlet, but it doesn't mean that you're going to get any attention. Like, just because you're on drive through doesn't mean you're going to make money. Just because you're on Amazon doesn't mean you're going to make money. So if I put my stuff on drive through and I want to make money on there, I should probably have like I should probably like put like attention on there and be promoting drive through and saying, you know, and whatnot. So I think all outlets are good, but they're only as good as the time and attention that you put on them.
The reason why I'm saying this for drive through, I do have an advantage with them, since they do digitally sign the copies that you sell through them. It would reduce the potential for piracy. The problem is people at, you know, your level, there's not that much potential for piracy, I would say, but it can always happen, and it would be annoying, I would say. But
if it happens, I actually wouldn't mind. I actually wouldn't care if someone pirated my stuff. I wouldn't care, because I see piracy just as another outlet to gain a reader.
That's true.
So, I mean, I'm not innocent. I've definitely pirated. I pirated some my the story I always tell is I pirated the book Nailbiter by published by Image Comics, and I read all 6 volumes pirated, and it was just so good. The series was so good. The next day I bought all 6 of them. And
I've done that as well. So
yeah,
we can't point fingers.
Yeah, so I just think, like, if someone were to pirate my stuff and then there is this in demand, you know, I think a problem that maybe some people might have is that they view their comic as the end all be all. But for me, it's like, okay, maybe they love the comic and they're super invested in it. And yeah, maybe let's say they're pirating the book. Like, that sucks. But maybe it gets them to buy a t-shirt. Maybe it gets them to buy a statue. Maybe it gets them to buy a sticker or an acrylic standee. Maybe it gets them to view my YouTube content more. So yeah, I might have lost the comic book revenue, but maybe they're buying the t-shirts. Maybe they're they're spending their money elsewhere in other areas. And so, like, I don't want people to pirate my stuff, but for me, it's if they do. The strategy is, okay, if they are pirating the comic, can I give them something else that they will spend their money on?
That is a very smart way of looking at things, I would say.
Thanks.
I mean, this is the kind of thing that needs to be talked about more, I think, not just on YouTube, but on many platforms. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do with this particular story and the particular podcast. I don't know what I'm going to call this other than creator talk, because what we see a lot, and I keep seeing it, is the people saying, like, okay, this is how you do art. This is how you write. This is how I do it. I'm promoting X book. But you don't have those discussions out there of, well, how does one market a book? How does one sell himself in a way? Because in the end, that's what we're doing. We're selling ourselves.
Well, I will say, like, there are people that have, like, I have spent the last 5 years on my YouTube channel making how to content, like how to market content. And a lot of it just people don't really care about. Like, that's actually a big problem, is that many creatives, they complain about the marketing aspects, but they don't want to learn it. And so, like, that's why I've just stopped talking about it on my YouTube channel completely. Is I used to, like, every week make like a new, like, marketing video, and instead I don't. I took them all down off my channel because I was like, these aren't getting views, no one cares. And then I would move that stuff to Twitter, and then on Twitter, like, that's like talking about marketing is like the fastest way for someone to, like, block you or get angry at you, because then they're mad that you're basically putting a mirror in front of them saying, hey, like the reason why you're not doing well is it's your fault, and they don't like hearing that. And so it's not the fact that these conversations aren't being had, it's just they're not being had by like the people who have figured it out. They're not talking about it anymore. They're just not talking about it because people aren't receptive. And then as well, if I'm the one, so like for me, I can, like, I'm always learning. So why should I why should I tell someone the thing that I learned that took me like weeks to like learn, like research, learn, figure out, and execute? Why should I share that with a creative? Like, why should I share that to the creator community? Only, why would I do that? Like, it's just going to benefit, me essentially. And, maybe like the 2 or 3 friends that I will share that stuff with.
That's a good way of looking at things. I personally have always had the opinion in learning things that people who want to learn deserve to learn and deserve to have the help. That's the thing that we've discussed on Twitter already, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And some other people brought up things like a rising tide rises all boats. It's true that if more people are in that better scale or better range of independent comics, and they're able to work on it full time like you are, or work on it part time but make a decent amount every time they release something, more people will be attracted to those comics, and we might have a bit of a revival of the genre, because the American comic in general is pretty much dead if we look at it on the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, it's definitely struggling. I think though the people who like want to hear it, if like there's like a difference between like want to hear it and then like will hear it. And I think if they will hear it, they're the ones who are going to do the research themselves. Like, I think that's one thing that I don't like, is that there's just so many creatives who they just won't do the research like themselves. They won't go out of their way to learn things themselves, and they kind of have to have everything handed to them. And so like for me, I agree, like rising tide lifts all ships. And so for me, like I have like probably 3 or 4 comic book friends, and I just keep like if we all learn something, we only share it with each other. That's like we don't really share it with anyone else outside of that. Like we just keep it within ourselves. I am working on like it's called the Indie Comics Marketing Manual, and it's basically a page where there's just a bunch of marketing things that you can learn that I've learned over the last 5 years and whatnot. So like that's going to be like kind of like the last thing that I give to the quote unquote creator community is like, hey, here's this document. There's a free version, there's a paid version, and hopefully you learn something from out of this, or at least hopefully this points you in the right direction and has you asking the right questions. Yeah. And then if it doesn't, I'm going to start doing like one-on-one consultation calls with people. I'll never be able to help you on like drawing your comic better or writing a better story, because I think a lot of that's subjective. But with marketing, like I signed up to do a marketing call with a creator, and although they gave me some really good information, they just didn't have any of the technical. They couldn't tell me one technical thing about marketing or business, and it's because they don't do it. And so a lot of the marketing stuff that they do is just basically name recognition. They're an industry pro, and like they put out, really good comics, but they've been around the scene for 20 years. And so it just doesn't help the person who's at level 1 who needs the level 1 stuff. And so I'm hoping that my creator manual will help that level 1 creator go, okay, this is the stuff I need to start thinking about or implementing in the future.
I think that's a really good tool to give to people. I mean, the people need to learn by themselves. If you try to give them all the tools, what you're going to end up with, I mean, I've done a lot of teaching, mostly on the technical side, and I've noticed that there's the people who want to learn, there's the people who need to learn, basically because they want to have the job, and that's about it, and there's the people that are there to fill in time. So yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Unfortunately, on the creator side, we see all three as well. And
Yeah, for
even
sure.
there, even if you have some people who are comic pros, some people on that comic pro level don't have that marketing background or have that marketing mindset to try to sell their product.
No, I agree.
You can see that. I mean, Graham Nolan, Chuck Dixon, as an example, those two, they kind of know what they're trying to do. They're trying to sell their product, etc. But they're also attaching themselves to other people.
Yes.
To try to move that forward. Those are industry veterans, people that have been in there for the longest time. Unfortunately, both of them have been more or less blacklisted. Then you've got your Ethan Van Skyvers of the world, who are really good at marketing themselves, but it's a negative form of marketing in a way. So they exist in that particular branch. And then you have some people who keep putting out product but aren't on that level, and they don't seem to want to reach another level. I mean, I've seen.
I think they do want to reach another level. They just don't know how, or that they either don't know how, or someone will tell them, and they don't. They think it's either beneath them, or they don't want to do like that work, the work needed, for it.
Do you think it's more the people that were in the industry that are trying to go indie that are having this issue?
No. I think because like if like for an Ethan Van Sciver, you can create a story. Like, well, one, he was already doing YouTube before like the whole comicsgate stuff, so he kind of already had like a sense of like content creation and marketing yourself. And then a lot of marketing is just like, what's the story around yourself? What's the story around what you're doing? Like when I marketed my book, My Sexy Witch Academia, the story of the marketing of that book was I did a Kickstarter for a week and I didn't tell anyone. Like I launched it on a fake account and I didn't tell anyone. I didn't put my name on it. I hired a bunch of artists and I launched a comic on Kickstarter and told 0 people, and it funded in 24 hours. And I waited a week and until I told people. And then, so that was the story. It was like, this book was funded for a week before I'd ever told anyone. And at the time it became my best Kickstarter at the time because there was a cool, interesting marketing story around it. With Super Plumber Sisters, the market, there wasn't necessarily a market. There wasn't supposed to be a marketing story tied to that one, but the marketing, a story that happened was the day before I launched the campaign, I lost my publishing deal because I got canceled on Twitter. And so that was the marketing story for that book. For Ethan Van Sciver's marketing story is the fact that he, says he was blacklisted from DC Comics and, is going to go indie and he wants to tell his own story, Cyberfrog. And, people resonated with that story and, follow him for whatever reasons that they want. And so I think for industry pros, it's a little easier. I think for the little guy, they just don't even know where to start. Most creators, though, they don't even know that they need to tell a story. They don't know what kind of story they need to tell, whether it's for the comic, the marketing, the story around the marketing of the comic, or the story just around themselves. And so I just think they don't see themselves as a product. Ethan Van Sciver knows that he's a product.
Same with Eric July as an example.
Eric July knows that he is a product. He's not just a creator. He is a product. People are buying his book because of him. People are buying Cyberfrog because of Ethan. And so I think a lot of creators don't even realize that they can turn themselves into a product in some way besides their comic being a product. And so there's just a lot of things that there's just a lot of there's just a million roads that a creator sees and they go, how do I figure this out? And I'm hoping that this creator manual I come out with at least puts someone in like the right direction.
Pointing people in the right direction, I think, is the smartest thing to do, I would say. Because there's so many things that have to do with, well, not just the marketing, but creation of, let's say, a campaign or creating a comic and trying to sell it. When you were you had a publishing deal, who was it with?
It was with Band of Bards. Okay. They're a small indie publisher.
And what was the deal? Were you working on your own project, or were you working on one of their projects?
So it was creator owned. Me and my friend Travis, he created this book called Coins of Judas, and he brought me on and he was like, hey, I need you to help me create some characters, and you'll be the artist of the book. We both own it 50-50. And Band of Bards took it, and they actually paid us a page rate to make the book. And so we put out 2 issues last year. It was their best-selling book of all time for that publisher. And so this year we were working on the next 2 issues to put out. And I put out a tweet one day that during the hashtag comics broke me saga, and it went stupid viral, and just got a lot of hate from people in the industry and people in the indie comic scene. And so they called me and just said, hey, they called me and they said, hey, we're canceling the book because we just can't get it. Well, what happened was a couple of the creators at Band of Bards joined the hate mob and started like telling Band of Bards like, hey, like this, like you got to fire this artist, blah, 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 blah. And so they called me up and said, we're canceling the series. We don't want the heat. And I talked to my friend Travis, and I said, hey, I'm sorry. What sucks about this is, the comics broke me thing is about how people in the industry aren't getting paid. And so the fact that these people mobbed us made it so that like our team couldn't get paid. And so I basically told Travis, I said, hey, I love you. I love everyone on our team. I want to make sure that you guys are still getting paid. What if I gave up my ownership of the book? Like, what if I gave up ownership of my book and you guys could still do it with Band of Bards and continue on without me? And they talked with Band of Bards, and Band of Bards said, yeah, we'll do that deal. We'll keep the series going. You just can't be associated with it anymore. So
wow.
I left. I did that not out of respect for Band of Bards, but out of respect for the creators that I was friends with. And and so I got kicked off my own book. But like I allowed myself to do it though.
Yeah. No, this is a very weird situation, and unfortunately, the comic book industry seems to really follow that kind of pattern more often than not, which is something I find annoying. Of course, that's more in the American market more than anything else. Yeah. If you go in Franco-Belgian, things get really weird really fast. But I mean, if you were attached to Magazine Spirou or Tintin, things would probably get problematic. But I need to study more on that as well, honestly, because I've looked a lot at the page rates, how the industry works in the background, let's say, in the US. In Europe, a lot of those artists are literally employees of the company. They're not contractors. So that's where it's a little bit different. And in Japan, well, you completely own your book. It's just you're being published through Shonen Jump, as an example.
Yeah, I mean, it's all like high stakes. It's all like high stakes. Like when you are working with a publisher, everything's a gamble. So like I don't know if you knew this, but I worked for a publisher for 5 years in the marketing and sales.
Okay.
A book publisher. And when I was hired on I was there to grow their online store, which had only sold around $10,000 a year. By the end of our first year, we brought in $1 million, and now that account does like $1 million to $2 million a year. Before when I left, but when I was in those meetings where I was in those monthly meetings where we would read the pitches and decide, does this author get to be signed with us? Do they not? And then I was also on the receiving end of all those phone calls of those authors saying, hey, how come I'm not making any money? And the thing is, when you work, it's all about the what's the risk that you're willing to take. And so when you're with a publisher, you essentially give them all the rights to your book. At least in America, you give them the rights to your book, and then you are going to get paid a royalty. And what the publisher will do is they're going to pay for everything: the editing team, the marketing team, the sales team, the distribution, the warehouse team, the cover art. They are just going to do all of this work, and you are going to get maybe $1 or less per copy that is sold. So you've decided, I'm going to allow this, I'm going to allow a company to do all of the work for me in terms of like the non-writing stuff, the business stuff. And then because you give all that power in their hands, you are then basically like, the power of like how much money is going to be made is really in their hands. When you work for yourself, however, you are the business and marketing thing, but it takes a lot more time. It's a lot harder. You typically have to learn how to do things that you're not uncomfortable with, but the reward is that you get to make all the money. And so when it comes to creators, of all sizes, independent, contracted, published, it just depends what's your risk level that you're willing to take. I have a lot of friends who are like, I just want to be published. And I want to be published, and they're super happy that they're published by a publisher in comics, and then they get like $1 a book. And they're like, I sold 1,000 copies and I made $1,000. And to me, I'm like, I would rather have the high risk of having to sell everything myself, because if I do sell, if I sell 1,000 copies, then I can make, they made 1,000, I might be able to make 10,000 or 20,000. And if it's on Kickstarter, if I sell 1,000, I could make 60,000. And so it's just what level of risk are you willing to take? And I think a big thing is a lot of indie creators, they say that they want to take the high risk, but they really don't. They don't want to take the risk, but they want the reward, but they don't want the risk. And you can't have that. To get a high reward in indie comics, you need to be able to take a high risk. If you want no money in indie comics, then you do low risk stuff.
Like going to Image or Boom or
those, but I mean, and it also but those come with other things. Like if you worked at Image, if you got a book with Image, now you get some name cred.
True enough.
that could open up a lot of opportunities that are worth more than just $1,000. That could, like, if someone's like Tyler, if they offered, if they said, hey, do you want to work for DC Comics right now? Would you say yes? I'd say yes. Absolutely, I'd say yes. And yeah, maybe it only lasts for 5 years, but I can say I worked on Batman. I worked for DC Comics. So, and they like, well, then they might say, well, you're not making any money there. And I could be like, that's fine. It's worth some of the name cred on there. So it just depends. Like it just depends. Like it just depends on the risk level and what door is going to be opened if you do certain things.
When you're talking about risk here, it probably depends on all sorts of things here. The biggest problem we see normally with those independent campaigns is always with the fulfillment. Do you do your own fulfillment, or do you contract someone to do it? Because that would be part of the risk here.
I actually don't think that's a risk. I think anyone who struggles with fulfillment, it's their fault. I've never had a problem with fulfillment. I've done like 10 to 12 campaigns. I've always fulfilled on time. The people who are late, like, they're idiots.
I understand that. That's a way to look at it, and it's how we feel as customers. Basically, when I deal with indie campaigns and Indiegogo, Kickstarter, whatever, I have to say that it's extremely annoying to not get the product you ordered on time.
And that's the key thing, is that it's not, is that you're frustrated because you didn't get the book on time. Now, who sets the expectation for on time? Who says it?
Should be the creator when
it's the creator
campaign.
No, but it's the creator. So, like, I'll just say it. When Ethan Van Sciver says that this book is going to come out, so if he makes a book in 2020 and he says he's the one that types it out with his fucking fingers and says this book is going to come out in your hands in 2021, he's saying in 365 days, I will make a 60-page comic and then deliver it to you within those 365 days. So when he's late, and when any other creator is late, it's the creator's fault. Like for me, so for this current campaign that I'm doing, the estimated date's January. I'm hoping to have it in everyone's hands by November. But by November, I give it though January to give myself a 2-month buffer in case like I mess up. My Sexy Witch Academia one is said to fulfill in October. I'm hoping to fulfill it by end of September. So like the creators, they've like just put like the correct estimated date, and then it will just save you all the hassle because you've set their expectations. If you say you're going to get me something in a year and it takes 3 years, I'm going to be pissed. Yep, and it's no one's fault. It's your fault. Like you telling me in 900 days you can't draw a 60-page comic.
Well, the people that I've another group here, Neon from Clownfish TV, they were basically delayed by about 6 months by their printer that didn't get their book out or ready. It was on the printing side that they had an issue.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second.
I have doubts as well, personally.
Yeah, I have worked with several printers, both as an independent and through my traditional publisher. I've gone to the printing facilities and whatnot. Like there's just 6 months. Like that's it's not a printer's fault. That's a user error from that's them. It's the easiest excuse, by the way, that creators can do. Oh, something to do with the printer, because it's just out like the printer. What's that mean? Who's the printer? What's their names? Like we never know. We don't tell people who our printers are. But so it's the easy excuse to blame it on this unknown business. I
mean, I'm always surprised to see when I look at DC Comics and Marvel Comics, normally they actually print an hour and a half from where I live, closer to Montreal, but about an hour and a half from where I live. Then I look at a lot of indie people. They get it printed in China. They get it printed in some weird location. So that means that you need to have the books on a boat. All sorts of issues can arise. I think investing a little bit into printing is not a bad idea either.
Well, I mean, like, I don't know, like for some of them, I don't know why they're going to like there's plenty of very like affordable US printers. And then if they are going to do China, they need to maybe they just need to do better research. Like some of them like some of them they what do I say? How do I say this? They just need to do better research on the process. Oh, I can do shipping for $2. No, you can't. Oh, shipping's only going to take me no, you can't. No, it's not. So
yeah, that's always a weird thing when I look at the shipping. I'm always a bit surprised about that as well. Shipping from US to Canada is fairly expensive on every single one of those campaigns.
It is. And it's accurate too. Like I hate that it's so expensive to ship to Canada.
And it's probably the same if you ship to like Mexico and international. No. So
Mexico, no. International is like almost double sometimes.
That limits a little bit when I buy stuff. Unfortunately, for some people, I will buy only the digital version. Even though I hate digital, I love to have the paper copy of whatever I'm reviewing or talking about. It's easier for me to read, and it's easier for, if my kids want to grab it and read it, it's a lot easier.
I think, and to me, I think that's why it's important for creators to offer a digital offering, honestly. Like, and I'm shocked that like a lot of creators don't. And actually offering a digital book would, one, make you more money, but then as a business, it'll also like offset so many various costs that it gives you more money to work with. So yeah, I just don't know. I'm always shocked when I don't see digital, but that's a whole other conversation.
Well, I think that's because in the US, comics are really seen as a collectible nowadays more than anything else. If you go in France or if you go to Japan, obviously the two other big comic market, I would say, the comic book itself is not viewed as a collectible. It's just a book. It's the content that's really important.
Yeah, it's a disposable book that like sometimes they even just trash. They read it and they go, "That was fun," and they throw it in the trash.
Well, not in France, since they're mostly
the France ones are a little like I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm mostly talking about like the manga that's like read in those like weekly magazines, and then they read it on the train and then chuck it.
Yeah, that's a completely different market. Well, in France, you'd have magazines Spirou, Tintin. Those are still the two big ones, and they're pretty much like that. A lot of people you'll read it and you'll discard it afterwards. They're weekly as well. And it's when the actual hardcover book comes out with the compiled stuff from the magazine, those you're going to keep.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's a bad more idea to do it that way either. I mean, I think an American comics could benefit from that kind of mentality for a little while to bring back its respectability in a way, because right now it's weird when you're looking at American comics. I find it completely baffling when you have a new comic, brand new. It was Astrobots I was looking at a few weeks back, and they had 17 different variant covers for the first issue. I mean, I understand it as a collectible, but are you really growing your market by having that many covers?
Well, no, and that's why it's I was talking with a friend about this, and like he's very much like he's very much in the mindset that comics are collectibles, and like if you buy a comic, it should be about what it's worth. So he's very much in like he sees comics as an investment. And keep in mind, he's a creator. So he like how he values everything he does is what's the investor going to get. And to me, like, and we disagree about this. To me, I think that's a horrible mindset to have as a creator, because you're missing like the most important, like fundamental aspect of a comic. Number one, it should be about getting readers. You know, yeah, one person might buy it for $1,000, or you can have 100 people read it for $10. What's sustainable? You need customers, and you know a business can't thrive off of one customer. They need to thrive off hundreds, and that's the benefit that we are seeing with like a lot of like these web comics. Like they're free to read on these apps, and then their friends are sharing them. Did you read this? Did you read this? You know, and then they're able to monetize those digitally. With manga, you know, you have the Shonen Jump app. It's $2, and you can read 100 chapters a day. It's very hard to read over 100 chapters of manga a day.
Except if you're my son. Okay, if you're my oldest son, 100, you'll probably get that done in 2 hours.
That's fair. And so my point is, and then with comics, there just isn't that accessibility where I can just like pull out my phone and read it, or I can just like snag it. You know, it's just such a trek for me to read a comic these days that the kids, I mean, you have to remember, like, we're also seeing a new generation of readers. So the generation, you know, people that are like maybe like in your age and older, like they were used to, like, at least in America, going to a comic book store and whatnot and reading something monthly. Well, the new and they're reading, you know, superheroes, if they're like those like 90s superhero fans. The kids nowadays, they know who Batman and Superman is, but their reading habits are changing. What they want to read about is different. Like they don't want to read maybe a superhero comic. They want to read a slice of life book. They want to read a romance. They might want to read like some supernatural, like action comic, and they're just not being. They might not feel like they're getting served those genres in American comics, or they just don't know about them because the comics are just so inaccessible to them. So what are they doing? They're grabbing their phones and they're reading webtoons, they're reading manga, and comics just still hasn't caught up to that, because they're still, I don't know, they're still just making decisions off of like they say that they're catering to this new reader, but they're not, but they're not like they're the readers that the people that are still reading comics are the same readers that were in the 90s, but they're trying to change up the stories. Oh, if we do like if we make Batman a girl, we're gonna get new readers and we'll sell it. No, the same people who are reading Batman right now, if you change it to a girl, they're just gonna drop it off. If you want to get new readers, put out books on the phone, put out a better digital offering, make things accessible. I know 90s comic readers hate it. I actually liked that that webtoon and DC Comics teamed up for that Batman family book, because I was like, this is gonna hopefully get new readers into DC Comics. And I think, I'm just waiting for more and more licensed like Batman, Superman, Spider-Man books to be more accessible to young readers.
I think Jim Lee is moving in that direction as the new editor-in-chief at DC, because he's the one who pushed for the DC Online as well originally. So he might have that mindset there, but Jim Lee's very weird overall, let's say. So we don't really know until we'll see something. But I think you're right there. There's a lot of there needs to be a change in how people kind of see things. Here in Quebec, kids are still reading the physical books a lot, I will say. But here we're very much in the Franco-Belgian kind of sphere as well for most of our comics. People around here will read Asterix, Lucky Luke, those great classics there. So,
well, kids here
different
in America are also reading a shit ton of physical books. They're buying manga by the bookshelf.
True enough.
And so it, like, when people say, when I hear people go, oh, like these 15-year-olds, they don't have money, though they absolutely have debit cards and credit cards, and they are going to Barnes and Noble and they are buying manga because they know that, because they just know where to get it. They can read it on their phone first and go, oh, that's cool. Mm-hmm. And then they can go over to Barnes and Noble and get it, or Amazon. It's just not the same with comics.
Completely true. And I think that's a big problem with the industry in a way. Yeah. And I think we agree on that. So that's a good thing.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, none of this stuff really helps like the indie comic creator, but it's important that if an indie comic creator wants to thrive, they need to figure out how to find new readers. Like, that's something that I'm on the hunt for every single day, is a new reader.
Mm-hmm. And I would say the having a digital option is a good idea. Like we were talking at the start of the podcast as well, though, if we have those digital option, maybe it'd be good to have some of them digitally signed as well. So at least who's the new reader in the long run. But that's all marketing stuff that could be a little bit more complex in the long run.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the stuff that people say is complex, a lot of it's just a Google search, honestly. But people don't want to. I mean, I am always shocked at the amount of creatives who, like, I'm like, do you know what Google is? Like, a lot of people are like, hey, how did you do this? How'd you do this? I'm like, instead of asking me, how about you like ask Google? Like, I go ask Google, or we have AI. Go ask ChatGPT. They'll also give you the answer. So I don't know. A lot of I'm just shocked at the like how lazy some creators are when it comes to like asking the right questions.
I have a feeling for some of them it's because they don't know where to start, really. And I think your little page that you were talking about might be a very good start for these people who don't know where to start. Once they know where to start, they'll be able to go in that direction and grow their audience, grow their market.
Hopefully, man, we'll see.
I mean, in the end, what I look at whenever I look at a Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Fund My Comic, or whatever, looking at the dollar amount is not the bit that's the most interesting. The most interesting is always the amount of backers.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can have a campaign with $200,000, but you're going to have 50 backers that all back for huge amounts. While you can have a campaign that doesn't raise a whole lot of money, but can have 500, 600 backers as well, just because their pricing is more reasonable, maybe, or maybe they give more options to people.
Yeah, like it really, yeah. I like. There's just so many different factors. Like when it comes to like pricing, like I've been told that I need to up my pricing. I just refuse. My last campaign was my best campaign, and it did almost 700 backers, and it did $20,000. And a creator was like, "Yo, you could have made more if you'd priced it." But there's a part of me that thinks that, well, maybe I wouldn't have gone that many backers if it was like too expensive. So there's so many different like aspects to like pricing your book and like how you do it, that a lot of it as well is just trial and error. And I think a big problem that we see in indie comics, at least I see it, is that like so many creatives, like they think that the one book that they're making is like the end all be all, and they have to like get everything right with this one book. Where like for me, I worked on like, 20 to 50 other comics before I put out my very first Kickstarter. And then I put out my first Kickstarter. It did like $1,700. And I was like, okay, this is what I need to learn. Put out my next one. This is what I need to learn. Did another one. It sucked. So I went, crap, this is what I need to learn. And so it's just like, if you want to succeed in this, if you want to succeed, well, one in anything, but especially in indie comics, you have to keep showing up, and you have to keep showing up with a new book. Like a lot of the creators who are like coming out with like, who are just like talking about the same book that they did over and over. They're like, I'm not growing. It's like, you haven't put out anything new in like a year or two. You need to be constantly putting out something new and trying out new things.
How many books do you think someone should put out if they want to be, competitive on that particular slate? Let's say not books, but how many pages?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. Like for me, for my Sexy Witch and Super Plumber Sisters. So for all my books that are not Girl with the Megafist, they're 40 to 60 pages.
All right.
Each book. And I'm putting out for each series, I'm putting out 3 of those a year. So like next year, I'm doing 9 Kickstarters. For Girl with the Megafist, each book is 200 pages, and I put out 2 of those a year. So like it's that, and like that's my competitive advantage, is that like I can say no other creator puts out as many pages as I do a year.
Yeah, I'm just doing the math in my head here, and you are right. In order to get that, well, some mangaka might be able to do that, but outside of that,
not like an American indie creator.
No.
Yeah. So my thing is, like I think if you can just get yourself in the 20 to 60 page range, like that's what people are normally doing. Like I think people are either doing 24 to 32 page floppies, or they're doing 60 to 72 page graphic novels.
And the 64 page, larger comic book that DC publishes every once in a while, I think it would be the best format for an indie creator, in my opinion, because you can price it a little bit higher than just a 24 page floppy.
Yeah, you could. You just get into like, you could. Like like my next one after this is a 70 page graphic novel. It's still going to be priced fairly reasonable. I mean, on average, I'm seeing Kickstarters, like the minimum for a physical I'm seeing is $8 to $10, and that $8 to $10. And that's if it's 24 pages and it's $10, typically the book is in color. If it's in black and white, people will maybe add the page count up a little more. Like my book was $10. Like Super Plumber Sisters was 40 pages, but it was a $10. But it was also because it was black and white. So I just think everyone just needs to figure out their own stride. I mean, people are shocked. Tyler, how come you're doing a Girl with the Megafist 200 pages and it's only $15? I'm like, well, I'm like my book has more pages than like 99% of other creators, and it's like the best price on Kickstarter. In terms of crowdfunding books, like People are charging $15 for their 24-page comic. I'm charging you $15 for my 200-page book.
I understand that, and I'm always confused when I look at some of those books that 24 pages for like $12-13. It's already expensive, and if you need international shipping on top of that, you're just pricing yourself out of a customer in a way.
Yeah, which is why they need to do the digital offering. Unfortunately, that is the reality though for comic creators who are doing colored books. Like a 24-page book is going to charge they're going to have to charge the customer $10 because the printing is already like $4. And they're hoping $4 plus the shipping of that book to them is like, so like by the time like they get the book to their hand before they've already spent potentially $5 or $6 on just printing of the book. And so that's why they have to price that to the people. And so, yeah, I agree. If you can make a bigger book that you can price a little better, it could help out. But most creators, that would require the creator to either put up more money beforehand for the book, or they have to raise more money. And typically creators can't do either. They struggle to raise enough money to get the amount of pages they need for a 60-pager, or they don't have enough money up front to pay the creative team to get to that 60 pages. And so ultimately they just have to stick to these 24-page books, and then hopefully they can get to a trade.
I mean, that's really interesting discussions to have. And I think sometimes just saying that would be enough to wake people up as to what they need to do. So I think today has been a fairly constructive discussion with a creative.
I'd say so.
Yeah. And I'm really happy to be talking to people about this, because that's really why I started this channel, to be able to not just talk about the comics themselves, but talk about everything that goes around it. And hopefully I get to talk to more people in a near future. I already have a few people that contacted me to be on this little discussion. So hopefully we move in a direction, and hopefully we talk again in the future.
For sure.
And we are going to end the stream now, I think. Do you have anything you need to plug before we leave?
Nah, man, I appreciate we did the plugging in the beginning, but I appreciate you spending time out of your day to talk to me. I had a good time.
I'm more glad that you spent time out of your extremely busy drawing and writing schedule. Good luck with the upcoming projects. I'll be sure to keep an eye on them. That's for sure.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
And everybody, as usual, keep on reading comics, keep on enjoying them. I'll keep analyzing them, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.